All right. I'll continue back here. I had to do some writing because it just didn't sound very clear how it jumped like that, you know. Mindlessly exposed. Mindlessly exposed, shouted Abdullah, almost falling. I think I'll read back even further. Yeah, I'll read back a little further. Abdullah typed in his web browser, quote, Moses running after a rock hadith into the laptop. When he found the Sahih hadith talking about Moses running after a rock that was running off with his clothes, Abdullah's complexion began to pale when he read, quote, Sahih al-Muslim, book 30, number 5850. Abu Huraira reported that Moses was a modest person. He was never seen naked, and Banu Israel said, quote, he was afraid to expose his private part because he had been suffering from scrotal hernia. He one day took bath in water and placed his garments upon a stone. The stone began to move on quickly. He followed that and struck it with the help of a stone, saying, "O stone, my garment! O stone, my garment! O stone!" until it stopped near the big gathering of Israel. And this verse was revealed pertaining to the incident. O you who believe, be not like those who malign Moses, but Allah cleared him of what they said, and he was worthy of regard with Allah. Quran 33, verse 69. The driver just stared straight ahead back at of Daniel's big rig and felt sick. There it is, said the driver in a monotone. There it is, said the driver in a monotone. The Muslim in the lower bunk started to really think he was shot in the upper chest for nothing and asked, does this mean Allah likes well-hung men? Apparently, said the driver with a scowl. Looking good down there, and being the best of whom Allah created, unquote, must mean a lot to Allah, since he'd have Moses angrily and mindlessly expose himself to his fellow Jews that way. Mindlessly exposed, shouted Abdullah, almost falling off the top bunk. Back in the cab of Daniel looked at Sally and said, you didn't know about this crap because so many Muslims try to hide it from us. But thanks to the internet, it still has a chance of being exposed before it's too late. And to think I almost killed you for such insanity, said Sally, shaking her head. You can see why they are trying to kill me, said Daniel. They know if I'm successful in exposing Islam, Islam becomes the biggest, most evil joke the entire world has ever been inflicted with. And then it's over. It's game over in the war on terror. The free world wins. It's ding dong, the wicked witch is dead. Cheering going on, said Daniel with a look of determination in his eyes. Daniel looked at the rig in his mirrors and said to Sally, you know, I haven't checked my mirrors this much since I was trying to impress the DOT when I was trying to get my Class A license from them. Daniel adjusted the CV to see if the Muslims were on the other channel. There was nothing but silence over the CV. I wonder what they're planning next. Sally pondered out loud. Back in the Kenworth, the driver, feeling depressed to think he might have wasted his whole life in Islam, was shouting at Abdullah, who seemed to be becoming more and more pious and fundamentalist in his thinking. The driver shouted, again, oh, again, how, again? The driver shouted, again, how, oh, Abdullah? How can Deuteronomy be talking about Muhammad when he got so many things wrong in the Quran? Daniel is right. He did get things wrong. The driver's fellow Muslims looked shocked. What are you saying, brother? Shouted Abdullah with a look of horror in his eyes. The driver of the rig went on and shouted, well, do you think the sun and moon swim in an orbit? Or did the parents of Noah, or did the parents of Noah and No. Well, do you think the sun and moon swim in the orbit? Or are the parents of Noah? Or yeah. Well, do you think the sun and moon swim in an orbit? Or that the sun and the moon are? Yeah. Well, do you think the sun and moon swim in an orbit? Or are the sun or or are the sun and moon or are the sun and moon really the parents of Noah and travel in vessels similar to their offspring Noah, like Quran 36:43 hints at? Daniel is right, brothers. Muhammad was wrong in prophecy. Actually, he was wrong in a lot of them. I'm going to read this one more time. The driver of the big rig shouted, well, do you think the sun and moon, quote, swim in an orbit? Or are the sun and moon really the parents of Noah? And, quote, travel in vessels similar to their offspring Noah, unquote, like Quran 36:40-43 hints at? Daniel is right, brothers. Muhammad was wrong in prophecy. Actually, he was wrong in a lot of them. Abdullah felt his heart pound. He felt as if he was on the verge of blacking out. He just couldn't believe the words that came out of the driver's mouth. Ahmed said to the driver of the rig, you're just testing us, aren't you, brother? You're trying to see if we will agree with you, so you can kill us, right? You are testing to see if who is out of Islam, right? The driver didn't say anything, but just looked straight ahead at Daniel's trailer. He then said, maybe I am, maybe I'm not. I'll let you decide, okay? The Muslim on the bottom bunk, still angry to hear that the ink of the scholar was more sacred than the blood of the martyr, according to Muhammad, said as he writhed in pain, if a prophet makes one prophecy, that is wrong. He is a false prophet according to Deuteronomy. The Torah, brother. You think Deuteronomy is still talking about Muhammad? If so, do you think the sun, after prostrating under the throne of Allah, could ask permission to rise again, unquote? It has to be metaphor there. You'd say, has to be, right? Abdullah peered over the edge of the bunk and shouted down at the wounded Muslim on the bottom bunk, I'm not going to even think of its metaphor. How's that? How about that? I am even going to think a stone running off with Moses's praise unto him's clothes to be I'm not even going to think a stone running off with Moses' praise be unto him's clothes to be a metaphor, to not be a metaphor either, to be not, yeah. I'm even going to think a stone running off with Moses' praise unto him's clothes to be not a metaphor either. And what is so wrong with a stone or rock running off with Prophet Moses' praise be unto him's clothes even? Allah showed the people that Moses, praise be unto him, had no defect and nothing to hide, but his beautiful character and modesty was the reason why he covered himself. The driver then shouted, where does it say that was the reason why Allah had him run off naked and angrily after the stone? If Moses was as modest we want to believe him to be, then why did Allah expose him to show there was no problem with his private parts? Does that make sense, brother? Does it? You don't see this as an insult to Prophet Moses? In his modesty, And for one thing, if Moses was truly modest, he wouldn't have run off after that rock like a crazy guy, but would have waited for someone to bring something to hide himself with. Also, being the leader of a people, he'd probably wonder why the hell Allah would be concerned what others thought Moses' private parts. Also, being the leader of people, he'd probably wonder why the hell Allah would be concerned what others thought of Moses' private parts. I mean, I would, wouldn't you? You are testing us, aren't you, brother? Asked Abdullah on the top bunk. You are testing us, right? Because you know that if the hadith says that the stone ran, then we say the stone ran, right? As the driver remained silent, the Muslim, Ahmed, sitting in the passenger seat, said, you are testing us, aren't you? You will suddenly say, you're joking if we pull guns on you to kill you, right? That's it, isn't it? I think he's joking, said Abdullah. Is that what you think? Is that what you think? Asked the driver coldly. Is that what you think? Asked the driver coldly. Thinking the driver was acting, Ahmed gulped and said, I believe the rock ran off with Moses' clothes. Things were different back then. And there were miracles. And there were miracles. And there were miracles. I don't find this hard to believe. And I don't think it was Allah trying to embarrass Moses. He had people to lead. This was to keep down rebellion. The driver asked with anger and hurt in his eyes. How does having Moses angrily running naked after a rock keep things in order for you, brother? Ahmed just sat there trying to think of an answer. The driver said, it's sad. We really have no answer for these questions Kafirs bring to us, do we, brothers? Ahmed suddenly picked up a gun and pointed it at the driver and said, you are joking, aren't you? You're testing us to see if we will agree with you so you can kill us. Right? I bet that's it, said Abdullah. He is testing us. He will shoot one of us if we agree with him. Won't you, brother? That's it, isn't it? The driver just stared straight ahead with an angry expression on his face. He then said in a whisper, Muhammad said he traveled by night on a flying donkey-like creature. On a flying donkey-like thing. And visited two structures that never existed at the same time. You do the math of what I believe in, okay? You do the math. Ahmed closed his eyes and slowly lowered the gun. Even though he was no longer pointing at the driver still looked bothered about what now sounded like deadly stupidity to him. What did he say? Asked Abdullah, reading something off of the internet. Nothing, said Ahmed with despair in his eyes. Nothing at all. Good, said Abdullah. By the way, I found something by a Muslim scholar about why Solomon was able to talk with the ants. I think I'll